Okay, all right, everybody. Welcome and thanks again for joining another Gimmal education session today. My name is Marcia Shields and I'm from our customer success team. If you've been on these before, our goal for these sessions is to assist you in addressing business challenges and demonstrate how your Gimmal software can provide a solution. We hope that you can walk away with usable ways to leverage your Gimmal software. We are recording this session, as you will probably heard, and it will be shared after the event. Today, Dean Meisenheimer will be your subject matter expert, and he's going to be demonstrating our Gimmal Records product. Dean will be showing you how to create custom dashboards and advanced reports. The format is 15 minutes or so of demonstration of the product, followed by 10 minutes of questions and answers. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A session at the bottom bar of your Zoom session, and we'll be sure to address them after the demo. Dean, that's all I have, so I'm going to hand things off to you.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Let me get the poll out of the way here. Yeah, take a moment to answer the poll questions as we go through this today. But yeah, thanks again for joining us, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can do some custom reporting with Gimmal Records using tools like Power BI or other tools like Tableau or even Excel, right? Really anything that can consume what's called an OData feed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We introduced this OData capability to allow our SaaS clients the ability to create custom reports. Everything I'm going to talk about today, you can do if you're an on-prem customer. You can do this because you have access to your database. The connections will be a little different, but you can still use tools, other than the built-in reporting tools to create reports if you would like as well. You should see, I have a screenshot here of the Gimmal documentation website. If you don't know where our doc site is, it's docs.gimmal.com. Makes it pretty easy to find. But in the Gimmal Records section, everything I'm going to talk about today is covered here underneath the developer guide part of the documentation. Under Power BI, we're going to talk about how to connect to the OData API, which is the reporting gateway. And we're going to talk about, we actually provide a Power BI template you can use as a starter to get started with creating these custom reports and dashboards if you've never worked with Power BI before. I'm not going to teach you how to use Power BI, but I will say there's a lot of great resources out there on YouTube and other sources that will teach you the basics of Power BI and have you up and running very quickly with the template. I was not a Power BI expert by any means before I started working with this, and it didn't take me long to learn how to create some custom reports and tabs and start to manipulate data and stuff. So with that, let's go take a look at the demo, the template that we provide. So I'm in Power BI on the desktop. The desktop version of Power BI. There's an online version in Microsoft 365 that you can use as well. Either one is fine. But this is the template that can be downloaded from the Gimmal doc site. And it kind of shows you how you can create, this is a custom dashboard that is looking at the Gimmal Records database and pulling data out. You see the pie chart here, my file share, SharePoint Online, my box environment. Well, if I were to go to my Gimmal Records environment, here's that same pie chart in Gimmal Records. We're showing the same data that's in the Gimmal Records database, but we're doing it through Power BI now. We're pulling that data out through what's called the OData gateway. And so you can see I've got things like record expiration, average number of days, my records by repository, number of new records in the last 30 days, kind of broken out by record class. And there's 4 tabs total in our default template. This one gives you a view of all of your records, kind of like the manage screen, but with a little different view of the data. And the nice thing about Power BI is it's interactive. If I want to sort by record title, I just click on the column heading. Or if I want to sort by record class, and maybe I want to do that ascending or descending, I just click the column heading. The other great thing is you see how you can use pull downs to quickly create filters. Maybe I only want to see records that are marked as obsolete. If I set that to true, I get a quick filtered view of all my records, right? And a couple of other tabs that are in the default template. One that shows, for example, triggers, where those triggers are used. Maybe I'm thinking about going in and cleaning up my triggers, and I thought, well, let me delete this vital record trigger. Well, what happens if I do that? Oh, well, it's used in a retention policy and in a life cycle and in a record class, and there's actually a record under control using that trigger. I better not delete it, right? And same thing with the file plan exceptions. This gives you an idea of what you can start to do with Power BI kind of outside the normal standard record reporting that's provided in Gimmal Records. So this is the template. When you download the template, I'm going to show you how to connect to the OData gateway. That's something that you have to reach out to Marcia and the team to actually have enabled for you. It's not just automatically there. But once that's enabled, you have the ability to download this template, connect to the OData gateway, and actually begin to use this as you see it right here. So let's talk about how do I connect? Well, with a clean blank slate or with the template the first time, the way you connect in Power BI is you go to this little button at the top that says Get Data. And you notice all of the different types of data feeds that Power BI could connect to. Again, for my on-prem customers, you can connect right to your SQL Server database if you have the credentials. You're going to have to talk to your DBAs about that. But for our OData feed, we connect to OData. When I click that, the system's going to come up and it's going to ask me now, give me the URL. And I learned a long time ago, don't try and talk and type at the same time, because I left out a slash. Records.gimmal.cloud, the same URL you use to get to Gimmal Records, and then slash OData. The first time you do this, you're going to be prompted for a username and a login because the OData gateway is secure. You have to have a service account set up in Gimmal Records, just like you would use for any of our connectors, right? So your Gimmal Records Global Records Manager can set up a service account, or your system admin can. And that would be used to authenticate when you try and log into the OData gateway. But when you do that, here you see all of the tables that are exposed that you can report against. So if I wanted to come in and get information on records, and let's say on items in the inbox, now you can pick all of these, and our template does, by the way. So the first time you open the template, it could take a while to load if you have large volumes of records. So maybe at first pick one or two tables, sampling, load it up, and when I hit load, that's going to open the gateway, pull the data from the tables, and create my data connection and my data set. And once it's done that, you see, say, creating the connection in the model. And on the right here, we will see our tables show up, and we'll now be able to start using those tables to create reports. Right, so it tells me exactly what it loaded. And on the right here in my data tab, here's my two tables. So now if I wanted to pull any information from the records table, such as things like record class title, I can just click on that, and it's going to open up a little window for me, and it's going to load that up. And here's a list of all my record classes, or all my titles of all my different records. Maybe I also want to add, let's say, the record class details to that. Or I want to add, let's say, is it declared a record? Right. So I can grab any of the data from that table and just add it to these visualizations over here. And if I want to make those visualizations pretty, I can come in and choose from all different types of built-in visualizations here. That's how we created the default template. So here's the default template. This is a version that I stored and then created some additional tabs on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. But you can see here's that same dashboard. I just changed the color scheme because I didn't like the default colors. I like more of the blues and a little more mellow colors. But here's those same four tabs. But I wanted to come in and create some custom reports. So I wanted to create a report, for example, for legal holds. Show me all my legal hold information now through Power BI. So here's a list of my legal holds. Here's a nice pie chart that shows those legal holds, and here's all the records that are on hold. And again, it's just a matter of coming in here and pulling the data from the proper tables. So if I select, let's say, let me grab, there we go. You can see I grabbed the legal case title, I grabbed the URI of the record, and then from the records table, you see the little green dot here. I also came down and grabbed the record title. That's how I pulled all this information. To grab the quantity of my records, I actually went in and grabbed some information from the legal holds table. I said, grab the ID and the legal case title, and then just do a count of how many items there are for each one of these, right? And that gave me my nice little pie chart. Here's the great thing about Power BI. The reports become interactive. Let me quickly filter this whole page just to my Armstrong payment dispute. I click on the pie, everything filtered down automatically. Or I want to turn that back up and let's say, oh, let me just dig into my FOIA records on hold, right? Makes your reports very interactive and very easy to work with. I did the same thing for the record archive. I said, I want to see all of the records that have been disposed of, when they were disposed of, the record class title, the record, where that record was, and I need to show volume of disposition by year. Right. I was able to do that by coming in and simply querying against come on, wake up. There we go. Querying against the archive records table, right? Look at disposed date, and again, just do a line chart and give me a sum, or down here in this view, grab information about the disposed date, as well as some information from the records table about the records. I created a custom inbox view. We're going to talk a little more about this particular view. A lot of folks, one of the challenges is having large volumes of records in the inbox to deal with. Well, this is a way you can create custom views of the inbox. Here I said, I want to see all the records eligible for disposition, and I want to see a list of all the cases eligible for disposition. So now I can get a quick view. I could give somebody who may not be a records manager or may not have access to Gimmal Records a view of what's coming up for disposition. I can quickly get a breakdown of which things are up for dispose and delete, which things are up to be marked permanent, what are my transfer records. And again, because this is interactive, I can quickly click on it and say, well, you know what, narrow that down just to my interactive records. The other nice thing about this is, in addition to being able to pick and choose the data, I have filters that I can use. So maybe I want to come in and I want to see my inbox, but I've got 1,000 records in my inbox, and I'm only concerned about records that are in my general record classes right now. So I want a quick view of that, and I want to filter that down. Well, I can come in here and I can say, for this particular panel, I want to come in and I want to say filter where the record class code. It would actually let me come through and just pick from all of the available values. But I can also do something like this. Advanced filtering begins with starts with, excuse me, GEN, apply the filter. Now I've quickly narrowed down the view and I'm only seeing in my records eligible for disposition window, records that are in that specific set of record classes. What becomes really cool about that is I can do something like this now, because this is one of the things that we get asked about a lot. I want to create a view for my HR department of only the records in human resources that are eligible for disposition. Because my business users need to see what's coming up for disposition and flag any exceptions. How do I create that report? Well, here's a view of the inbox, right? I built it off of this other one. I created a separate view. And what I did is I happen to know in my SharePoint Online environment, if I go to my human resources site, and we'll just look at my employee files as an example, I happen to have a metadata property called originating organization. And so for any record, any documents or records tied to human resources, this is going to say human resources. Well, I can use that in my reporting, to come in here and say, I can use that in my reporting now to filter this view to say, only show me records in my inbox where one of the properties is human resources. And again, the way I did that, there's a couple of different ways to do that. The first is I simply came in and said, first of all, one of my record properties is this thing called the property bag. And it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's all of the records or all of the properties about a record. So I simply said, for this window here, put a filter on the property bag where if originating organization property has the value human resources, or because I know my SharePoint on-premise environment uses a slightly different variation of that, owning organization, and the value is human resources, I can filter on those properties that we know Gimmal Records captured off the records. And now I get a very tailored view of only records that are related to human resources through their metadata in this view of my records. Right. We're not going to get into teaching you how to get into the property bag today, but what I will show you is, if I just click here, if I were just to click the property bag to give you an idea, whoops. Excuse me. It is a row here, as you can see, that has I can't control my mouse. All right, there we go. But it has all of the information that you would see in the property screen in Gimmal Records. And so that's what I'm querying against to use to do that filtering. And so it gives me this custom view here of my inbox for only my human resources records. Now, I'm doing all of this in Power BI on the desktop. But one of the great things about Power BI is I can take this report and I can publish it. So you may create it using the desktop version of the tool, which I prefer personally. But when you publish it, what's going to happen is it's actually going to publish your report as well as the data set into Microsoft 365 into a Power BI, what they call a workspace. And there are special workspaces you can set up. You have your own individual workspace. If I go to my workspace, here you see, here's our education session report that we're working with. I've published it to Power BI. And here's the model, the data set that this report feeds off of. And you can set this up to update automatically, maybe once a day, every 24 hours. It updates itself in the background. So you're always going to have current data. But again, when I open this report in Power BI on the web, here's that same exact report. now, but I'm viewing it through the browser and working with it through the browser. So that's kind of cool. But I still have to, if I wanted Marcia to access this, I still have to teach her how to use Power BI. And we may not want to do that. Marcia may not want to do that. So other things that I can do here, I could actually share this with her and just send her a link to view the report. I could actually send her a link through Teams where she could just click the link and bring the report up to view it. She wouldn't have to worry about navigating to Power BI or anything, right? I just send her a Teams chat. It embeds the link in the Teams chat. And when she logs into Teams, here's her message. Hey, click this link. It's going to open the report. That's all you need to worry about, right? Really, really easy. But here's my favorite. Especially for your casual users. Well, you can send them a QR code if you like. You could actually generate a QR code that would take you to this report, but you can embed that report in SharePoint Online or in other websites or portals within your organization. So if I click embed in SharePoint Online, it gives me a URL. And now if we come back to my human resources SharePoint site, I'm an HR employee. I want to come in here. I need to go review records that are coming up for disposition. I don't need to be in Gimmal Records. I don't know how to use Power BI. But if I come to the bottom of the HR site collection now, here's my dashboard embedded right into the SharePoint site. I don't have to go to Power BI. I don't have to leave my SharePoint site. I can see all of the information. And even better, again, it becomes interactive because it's Power BI. I can click on any of the pies. I can do whatever I need to do. I can see this information. And now maybe I want to go, oh, some of these I'm not so sure about. I can notify my departmental records manager or whatever your process may be to say, hey, these 3 or 4 records that I see up for disposition, let's hold off on those, right? So it's another way of exposing records information to non-records managers or non-records trained, personnel. So I run a little bit long. There was a lot to cover there. I'm going to let's jump back to the slides here, and we will open it up for Q&A.
That was great, Dean. I learned a couple things there too. Publishing and all the things behind that. Those very important. That's great. We do have a couple questions, but if you all, there's still time, feel free to post questions in the Q&A area. We'll get those answered. We have enough time. Dean, first question, is Power BI the only reporting tool supported?
Is Power BI what? I'm sorry?
The only reporting tool supported?
It is not. So kind of going back to the reason that we are using OData as the reporting gateway is it's supported by a lot of different common reporting tools. You can actually open an OData feed into Excel if you really want to. But Power BI consumes it. Tableau is another popular tool out in the market for doing, dashboards and custom reports and things that can consume the OData feeds. Really, most reporting tools are going to be able to connect to OData.
And it actually goes to the poll question we had up asking about what people are using. If you haven't seen that, if you came late, feel free to take the poll. We do have a second question. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you speak to it. Does Gimmal provide training on Power BI?
Gimmal does not provide training on Power BI. We can obviously certainly help you with, with getting the template working, getting the OData connection going with Gimmal Records. Doing the custom reporting. Our client success team can certainly work with you to help you generate custom reports on a consulting basis, but we don't do actual, Power BI training, how to use Power BI. Like I said, if you go to YouTube or you go to online places like Coursera or others, there's a lot of good resources out there that that will get you up to speed on the basics of Power BI pretty quickly, quite frankly, at no or minimal cost. That's
So
how
Oh, that's good. One more question. Is the reporting capability available only on Gimmal Cloud?
This particular, the OData feed is designed for Gimmal SaaS clients because otherwise they had no way to generate custom reports because for security purposes, obviously, you can't get to the database. If you're an on-premise customer, you can actually use Power BI or other reporting tools to connect directly to the SQL Server database that Gimmal Records is running on, which is what OData is doing in the background. It's just pulling data out of the Gimmal Records database. So you can do very similar things. It'll have a slightly different look, the tables and things, but you can do the exact same things if you're an on-premise customer. You'll just be connecting to the database directly.
No more questions, so we're going to wrap up then. Yeah, thanks everybody for attending today. Really appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed the session. Hope you learned something. As mentioned earlier, we will send the demonstration recording to everybody who registered, so be on the lookout for that soon. These education sessions are offered twice a month. Next will be thank you, Dean, for putting that up. Next will be Gimmal Physical on March 12th at 1 p.m. We'll be going over the Gimmal Physical product. If you do have more questions or want some more information on the topic Dean reviewed today, or have suggestions for future education sessions for topics you'd like to see us cover, please send those to me or to success@gimmal.com, and we will fold them in due time. But that's it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.